Welcome back to the Richest YouTube channel. In today's class, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful mermaid skirt. You can see it's a mermaid skirt with a very long train, as we have seen, and you can see how well the train sits and the skirt. Okay, it's a very simple tutorial. This is the front of the skirt, and it also has crinoline on the hem. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you.
So for this mermaid skirt, I'm going to be cutting directly on my fabric. This is the main fabric that I'm using. It's going to have a long train. So for the train, I'm going to be using this Ankara fabric as well. For the train, it's going to be different from the main fabric. So I have folded my fabric into two. The measurement that I use to fold into two is my hip measurement multiplied by 2. Okay, my hip is around 48 inches. So 48 divided by 4 is going to give me 12 inches. So that 12 inches now, I multiplied it by 2, and then I have 24. So here I have 24 inches, meaning I have, after folding, this is 24 inches and this is 24 inches for the front alone. So all together is going to be 48 inches by the time we open it out. I hope you understand that. Okay, I did that because it's going to be an A-line skirt for the front, so I need that extra inches to create that my A-line effect. So here, the lines that you see here, I have already made a half length. So I started taking my measurement from where the half length stopped. The half length is 17 inches, you can see. So I have 17 inches here. From there, I took my hip measurement. My hip is 26 inches, and then I took my knee measurement. So my actual knee measurement is 40, but because this is a mermaid skirt, I don't want the flare to start exactly on the 40 inches. I came up by 2 inches, and then I have it as 38 inches. So I made all of this into a straight line. So now the next thing now is to start taking my measurement. So the waistline is 36 inches divided by 4 is 9 inches. So on this waistline, which is also the starting point from the fold point, remember this folded part, I'm going to measure 9 inches. I'm going to add a dot to this skirt, so I'll add 1 inch dart allowance to this, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance that I'm going to use to sew the skirt. You add whatever seam allowance you're working with, and then I'm going to move to the hip. The hip, like I said, is 48 inches divided by 4 is going to give me 12 inches. So here I'm going to mark the 12 inches, and then from there I'm going to add my seam allowance as well. So after doing this, I'm going to move to the knee. So for the knee, you want it to be a little bit fitted. It's going to be tapered inward. So now from what you have on your hip line, okay, if you want to really go extreme, you can use exactly what you have on your waistline for your hip, so that it's going to be really looking that fitted. But if you don't want to do that, you can just deduct 1.5 or 2 inches from what you have here on your hip line, and then you use that here. So if you're deducting 2 inches from 12 inches, then it means you're going to be left with 10 inches, and if you're deducting 1.5, you'll be left with 10.5 inches. So I'm deducting 2 inches from that, and I'm going to mark 10 inches here. Okay, so after that, I'm going to add the same, I'll add the same seam allowance that I added for the waist, hip to the knee as well, and then with my curved ruler, I'm going to connect all these measurements together. So you start by connecting from your waist to your hip, and then from the hip, I'm going to connect to the knee. Okay, so you can see the shape that I have there. So I'm going to do the same thing for the seam allowance as well. The seam allowance is quite wide because I want to use lining to turn it. I'm going to be weaving it, so that's why I have that much seam allowance. And then from here again, I'm going to connect to the hip, to the knee, sorry. So now this is what I have. You can see the shape that we have there. So the next thing now is to connect this to the hem. Remember I said I have excess. My actual hip is 12 inches, but here I have 24 inches. So all the excess that I have here from the knee line here, I'm just going to connect it diagonally to the hem so that I can form my A line. So I have connected it, as you can see. So I'm just going to cut it out before I shape the hem so that you can see it better. So I'm cutting out this shape that I have now, so that I will just have my actual pattern, and then we will shape the hem of the skirt as well. Okay. So now this is what we have. You can see what our skirt looks like better now. This is the upper part, the hip, and from there I just connected like this to my hem. So here now, the only thing I'm doing to this on the hem of the skirt, I don't want it this sharp, so I'm just going to come up here by 2 inches from the hemline. Around 2 inches is fine for me. I will measure that into the seam allowance, and then with my curved ruler I'm just going to find a way to blend that back to what I have coming from the center front, and then I'm going to use my scissors to trim that part off. So after doing this, now I'm going to lay the fabric again, and then I will cut the back. I'll use the front to cut the back. So I have folded my fabric into two again, enough to accommodate what I have already cut for the front, but in this case the back has a zipper, so we are going to be creating our zipper allowance. So now I have left the front on the back, and like I said, we are going to create a zipper allowance for the back. So you just lay it well, and then make sure that you have enough to add the zipper allowance that we need. So after arranging my fabric, now I'll extend my hip measurement to the zipper allowance line, because I want to create like a bump. I don't want the hip area to be flat at the zipper allowance area. So what I'm doing now is just extending this hip line that I have here. I'm extending it into my zipper allowance. I'm doing the same thing for the knee as well. Okay, so here on the hip area, I'm going to mark 1.5. You can do 1.75 or 2 inches if the person has a really big butt. So here I'm just marking 1.5 inches here for my zipper allowance, and then here on the waistline I'm marking 1 inch as against the 1.5 inches that I marked for the hip. So here I'm marking 1 inch. So this extra 1/2 inch that I have on the hip, I'm going to remove it from the side later. So that is how I'm going to reconcile it. So I'm marking 1 inch here on the waistline, and then I'll simply connect that from my waist to the hip. Okay, and then on the knee area, you can come out a little bit. I'm going to mark 1 inch as well, and then I'm going to connect that to the hip as well again. So it's not much, it's just a little difference, okay, from there. And then you're going to maintain the 1 inch allowance all the way to the hem. Okay, I hope you can see this. This is the 1 inch for the waist. The hip was 1.5 inches, and then I just marked 1 inch, and I connected 1 inch all the way to the hem. I'm going to cut it out so that we can see it better. And then this side, for this side, you are going to cut exactly what you have here. The only difference is that by the time I cut it on my hip line here, I'm just going to deduct 1/2 inch for the back alone because of the extension that I created here on my zipper area. So I'll go ahead and cut this. So just like I explained, I have cut this side. You can see that this side is exactly the same, and then for the zipper area, you can see I have cut it out, and you can see that here is a bit smaller than what we have on the hip. So now I'm going to remove the front so that we can work on the back. So for the back, here on the hip area at the back, you can see that I have removed the 1/2 inch on the hip, and then I reconnected it back to the waistline and the neckline. So that is what I am removing from that side now. Okay, just a little, so you can see. So now the next thing that we're going to do, remember this is going to have like a train. Okay, so here I have marked my knee line. Okay, this is my knee length, and this is the zipper allowance, the 1 inch. So I have marked that. So you need to decide where you want this train to start from. You can start on your knee, exactly on your knee length, or you can just come up a bit so that it's going to be under your bum. Remember, my actual knee was 40. I already came up by 2 inches. That's why I have 38 inches. So you can come up as high as 4 inches if you want it really directly under your bum, or you can do 2 or 3 inches. It's totally up to you. For me, I think I'm just going to come up by 2.5 inches from my knee area. So here I'm coming up by 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to recheck my seam allowance there. Okay, 1 inch. Okay, so you can see what I have marked there. So the next thing is to go over to the hem. So on the hem as well, I'm going to, here as well, I'm going to go inwards by around 8 inches. Remember, there is a zipper allowance of 1 inch, so that's like going inwards by 7 inches. So this is just for the tail that we are adding to be able to sit well, fit into the skirt very well. You cannot just add it directly. It's going to be standing alone. It's going to be like it's separate from the outfit. So you want to create enough space for it to just blend into the skirt pattern very well. That's why we are doing this. So here I'm going inwards by around 8 inches. You can even do up to 10 inches, but I think 8 inches is fine. So I'm marking that there. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect from this underbutt, okay, in a diagonal form to the 8 inches that I created. So you're just going to slant it like this, and we're going to remove that. Okay, we're going to slant, and then we're going to cut that part out. I already explained why we're cutting it out. This is just for the godet, the tail that we are adding to it. We want it to just sit very well. That's why we are removing this part, so you can see. So now I'm going to bring in my scissors, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So here, you don't want to forget your zipper allowance here, and then your cut. Okay, so this is the new shape that we have for the back. This is what the center back looks like now. So I want to line this kind of fully, so I'll cut out my lining this same way as well, but I'm not lining the train part, the tail. I'm not going to line the godet. So the main body is for both front and back. I'll go ahead and cut out a lining exactly like this for it, and then I'm going to add crinoline to this part as well. I'm going to add to the front, and the remaining part that I have for the back, I'm not adding to the tail. So I'll set it aside now and work on the tail. For that, I said I'm using this fabric. So what I'm going to do now is to fold this in a triangular form, like I'm folding a cone. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Let me get a paper to explain this. Okay, so I have folded it, and like I said, I'm going to explain with the paper. So assuming this is our fabric, so what we are doing now is folding like this from angle to angle in a triangular form, just like this. Okay, so you can see this is what I am folding. This is the open part. This open part is what you're going to sew to your skirt, and this closed part is what is going to just flow like that. So the two sides that we slashed open, we're going to be sewing this, each of these two sides to our skirt. So now we're going to cut out the cone. So to cut out the cone, this open part, just like I explained, it has to match with your skirt, with the lower part of your skirt from where you slashed it open, this part. Remember I said we are going to sew it together. We're going to be joining them together, so you just need to measure what you have there, and that is the measurement that we are going to need for this open part. Okay. Okay, so now I have measured it and I have about 30 inches. So remember I said I'm not going to line it, so I'm adding extra to that. I'm marking 32. So on this open part here, I'm going to go ahead and mark 32 inches, which is what I have marked here. I'm going to demonstrate that with the paper as well because it's quite big. So like I explained, after folding it in that diagonal form like a cone, this open part, you measure what you have on your skirt. For me that's 32, so let's assume that the 32 is around here. Okay, so I have the 32 somewhere there. So the next thing now on this part, this is what determines how long your train is going to be. It's totally up to you. So you add whatever it is to these 32 inches that you have marked. For me, this person wants the train really long, so I'm just going to exhaust what I have on this side of my Ankara. Okay, after folding like this, of course this part is going to be shorter than what you have here. So let me just use this paper as an example. So after folding now, on this side I have just about 6 1/4, but if you measure what you have on this long part is around 9 inches, so you can see how long it is. That is exactly how it is on my Ankara fabric as well. So now measuring what I have on this other side, now I have about, it is quite long, so I'm just using it. So if you don't want yours to be long, you just measure. You can add 10 15 to 20 inches to the 32 inches and then measure that. But for me this is around 64 inches. Okay, this person wants the train really long, so I'll just maintain what I have there on my 64 inches. And then the next thing you're going to do is to find a way to blend from this open part, the 32 inches. You're going to try to blend everything in like this to the 64 inches that I have here and cut out. So if you don't want yours to be what you have on this Ankara part, so to this 32 inches you can just add 10 to 15 inches to it. So that's going to give you around 45 thereabouts. So you just measure that here and stop it, and then you connect that to your center area here. I hope we understand what I'm saying. So now I'm going to grab my scissors now, and then I'll start to cut out this shape that I have. It's going to be big, okay? Like I explained, the person wants it really big, so that is why I'm just maintaining what I have there. So I'm just cutting out that shape, and I hope we'll see it better by the time I remove this. So now this is what it looks like. This is the center part, the part I'm sewing to my skirt, and this, all of this now forms my train. Okay, you can see how long it is. We're going to open it out. So once you open it out now, you can see that it is quite long. Like I said, it's very long. So you can see all of that tail that we have there. So now I'll cut my lining and then we'll start to sew. I've gone ahead to cut the lining. Okay, so the lining is just a bit shorter than the main fabric, about 1.5 inches shorter, because I want the main fabric to be showing on the hem area. So now you're going to take the dart for the lining and the main fabric. I want to do that separately, and then I'm going to turn the lining. I'm going to turn the hem first because I said I'm going to add crinoline to it. So you can sew the front and back together, but I just prefer to do mine separately. So what I'm doing, I'm placing the lining against the main fabric on the hem, and I'm going to bring in my crinoline. Okay, so this is the crinoline that I'm working with. Is not so strong, it's kind of soft. So because of that, I just plan to double it. So I just place them on each other. On this side now, I will hold it with like bias so that it's not going to be sticking out like this, and then I'll place it on my hem like this. So I will sew it down on the hem. I just want the hem of this skirt to have structure. That's why I'm placing this. So the crinoline is kind of rough, so you can iron it first before you sew it. So I'm going to sew it down, and then I'm going to turn the skirt. So after sewing down, I'm going to sew the side as well. I'm going to sew the side of the skirt, and then I'll turn it. Okay, so I have sewn the lining and the main fabric together. You can see that the sides are neat now, and then I have inserted my crinoline in between. Let me flip it so that we can see. I doubled the crinoline like I explained, and then I used this stitch, and I also have an hemming gum in between them so that I can iron it and it can lay flat. So I just turned it and top stitch on the lining so that my top stitching is not going to show on the main bodice. Okay, so because my lining and my main fabric is not on the same level, the crinoline is kind of pushing on this part. You can see it's not already on this part. So after ironing it, if it's not looking as fine as I want it to be, if it's not relaxing because of this space, I'll just go ahead and use this 1-inch crinoline and cover up this space. So I'll use my hemming gum to attach them together. Hopefully by the time I give this a good press, it's going to look as nice as I want this to look. So I'll just go ahead and iron this now. So this is for the front. For the back, I have done the same thing. I have hemmed it, and then you're going to go ahead and iron that as well. So this is the side and this is the center fold. So this center fold, remember we have a zipper allowance there, so I'm going to notch that point. There's a pin there, so you just assemble it. You can just sew the back pieces together first, or you can just hold with a pin. Okay, so you hold it with a pin, you sew up to here so that you can fix your excuse me, so that I can fix your godet, your flare, the tail. Okay, that part. So now I'm going to sew a little bit here so that this can be together, and then from there I'll simply bring in my flare, and then I'm going to insert it in between this. Okay, remember we used it to measure it, so it's just going to be the same. It's going to be the same length that you want. Okay, and if it's not the same, we are going to hem it. So if you want to line this as well, you must have lined it separately, but this is going to consume a lot of lining, and the lining is quite expensive. It's a cotton lining, so I'll just leave it. Thankfully the fabric is pure cotton, so it's going to be fine on its own. So I'll just go ahead and sew this to this hem. That's after serging this, or you can also fold it and you just want it to be neat like what you have here. So I'll sew it on this side, and then the other side as well. I'm going to sew it here before I sew the front and back together. Okay, so now it is ironed, and I have gone ahead to fix my train. Okay, so you can see this is it. This is where it meets. So you make sure that nothing is packing there. It just have to be this clean and sharp. This is what it looks like on the inside. So you just open up a little bit of this, and then you sew each side. So you can see that there is no strain around that place. So you sew each side to the part that was slanted independently. And then I think I have a tutorial on how to sew this already on the channel. I'm going to link it in the description box, but it's very simple. It's just like inserting a godet inside what you already shaped, and because you have shaped it already, you can see that it just sits right in between the two bodies that we have. And like I said, the tail is very long, very long. So it depends on what you want. So now this upper part, now I'm going to sew it up to where my zipper is going to start. Okay, you're going to sew it to wherever it is that you want to place your zipper. So after doing that, the next thing you're going to do is to bring the front and back together, and then you lay them on each other. So this is my front. It is ironed as well. Okay, this is the hem. Like I said, after ironing it, I did not run into any issues with my crinoline. It just sits very well. So this is what I have. And remember, the front side was used to cut the back side, so it should not give you any issues with sewing. So all you just need to do is to match the two side seams together, and then you're going to sew with your seam allowance. Remember, we added the dart allowance, so please kindly remember to take in your darts. I have done mine, so I'm just going to sew it on both sides. So like I said, I am sewing this to a princess dart blouse. It's a built-up neckline blouse. I already have this tutorial on the channel, so you can check it out as well. So that is what I'm going to sew this skirt to. I'll go ahead and join them together, and then I'm going to show us what it looks like, especially the string, when I am done with sewing.
So the front and back is joined now, and you can see, like I said, I also sew my half length to it. The tutorial on the half length is already on the channel, so you can check it out if you want to learn how I make that. So this is what it looks like. You can see the train on the back, and now this is what the back looks like. This is the waistline, that's the bodies of the skirt, and this is our train. You can see how long this train is looking. You can make it as long as you want. You just need to cut it out the way I explained in the video. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.